The moment my boots hit the crushed seashell driveway of the waterfront estate in Nantucket, the familiar sting of my father's voice cut through the evening air. Bill was leaning into a circle of his golfing buddies, a conspiratorial grin on his face. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," he murmured, just loud enough for the sea breeze to carry it directly to me. The little farm girl decided to grace us with her presence. He chuckled, and my mother, Karen, added a little titter of her own, something about me clashing with the decor. They acted as if I were a piece of driftwood washed ashore, a blemish on their meticulously crafted family portrait. They didn't even bother to look in my direction, as if acknowledging me would somehow tarnish their polished evening. The profound irony, of course, was that the deed to this entire sprawling property, the crown jewel of my company, the Beacon Group, had my signature on it. Finalized 3 years ago, every glowing lantern swaying gently in the wind, every perfectly arranged place setting on the private beach, every single grain of pristine sand beneath their expensive loafers, it all belonged to me. And tonight, those whispered insults were about to carry a price tag they couldn't possibly imagine. My name is Maya Vance, and I am 35. I grew up in a forgettable little town in Iowa, the kind of place where ambition goes to die. I left as soon as I could and never really went back, not out of malice, but because my family had made it painfully clear I was the rough draft, the prototype they had to get through before they created their masterpiece. My younger sister Tiffany, who was incapable of any wrongdoing in their eyes. Every achievement of mine was a stepping stone for her praise, every stumble a confirmation of my inadequacy. So I went and built my own world from scratch, and I never said a word about it. There is a certain power in being underestimated. It is an advantage you can quietly cultivate. I had been invited to my sister's wedding tonight, a last-minute summons that felt more like a grudging obligation than a heartfelt request. I nearly threw the invitation away, but a sliver of curiosity, or maybe just that stubborn part of me that refuses to be erased, pulled me here. I wanted to see if a single thing had changed. It had not. So I stood there, in my weathered jeans and old boots, a ghost from their past, ready for what was about to unfold. And believe me, the storm that was coming was about to capsize their entire world. If you are finding yourself drawn into this story, I would be so grateful if you could tap that like button. Maybe drop a comment letting me know where in the world you are tuning in from and what time it is there. I personally read every single comment, and your support is what allows me to continue sharing these experiences. Thank you for being here. Now, let us get back to how this night unfolded. I walked the winding stone path toward the main celebration, the sea air whipping strands of hair across my face, pulling with it a tide of memories I had fought for years to keep at bay. When I was 19, I left that small Iowa town holding nothing more than a worn-out suitcase and a one-way bus ticket to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There were no tearful goodbyes at the station, no promises to call every Sunday. My family had spent my entire life showing me that I did not fit, that I was not the right shape for the hole they had carved out for their family picture. I decided to stop trying to force it. I found a job waiting tables at a humble beachfront resort along the coast. The work was absolutely punishing. I was on my feet for 12-hour shifts, my world a blur of clearing half-eaten plates, wiping down sticky tables, and enduring the condescension of guests who saw the staff as invisible machinery. But I was a sponge. I observed everything. I saw how the managers juggled overbooked weekends, how they negotiated with linen suppliers and produce vendors, how they turned the fleeting summer season into a year's worth of profit. On my rare nights off, I would sit in my tiny, humid room, hunched over a secondhand laptop, devouring online courses in real estate law and hospitality management. I filled notebooks with scribbled plans and financial models under the buzz of a cheap fluorescent desk lamp. Every single dollar I earned in tips went into a savings account. There were no new clothes, no nights out with coworkers. By the time I was 26, I had meticulously saved enough for a down payment on a dilapidated coastal cottage, a wreck of a place with a leaky roof and rotten floorboards. I spent every weekend and holiday for a year renovating it myself, learning from online videos how to frame a wall, lay tile, and fix plumbing. I turned that forgotten shack into a charming rental estate for vacationers. The first guests left a glowing review, and then they told their friends. One property became 2, then 4. I poured every penny of profit back into the business, focusing on exclusive summer rentals along the East Coast, private havens for affluent families who wanted ocean views and 5-star service without the impersonality of a large hotel. Today, my company owns a portfolio of luxury estates, the Beacon Group, stretching from the Carolinas all the way up to Maine. We are booked solid for years in advance, generating revenue that the 19-year-old girl scrubbing tables could never have fathomed. But I never told my family. In their minds, I am still that girl, probably struggling in some cramped city apartment, perpetually one paycheck away from disaster. I let them believe it. It was just simpler. For the last 9 years, however, I have been channeling money back home. It was always done anonymously through my company's financial arm, enough to quietly pay off the rest of their mortgage, to cover the escalating utility costs, to replace the entire roof after that huge hailstorm, and even to pay for Bill's physical therapy after his knee surgery. The transfers arrived like clockwork, unsigned and unexplained. They assumed it was Tiffany. Of course they did. My younger sister was the family star, curating a dazzling social media presence full of freelance PR gigs, alluding to high-profile clients and glamorous projects she could never quite name. To people back home who only saw the surface, it sounded incredibly impressive. And my parents, they wanted to believe it more than anything. Bragging about Tiffany's imagined success was a way of validating their own parenting, proof that they had raised at least one child who had truly made it. The reality was that Tiffany's income was a trickle at best, a few small-time contracts interspersed with a lot of unpaid networking, but the money kept appearing in their bank account, so the myth became fact. 2 weeks ago, the wedding invitation arrived. It was printed on thick, cream-colored cardstock with elegant gold script, the kind of invitation designed to announce wealth. It felt like an afterthought, a box Karen needed to check. Family should be there, I could almost hear her saying to her friends. A performance of familial duty. I almost threw it in the trash. Why subject myself to another night of their subtle jabs and painful comparisons? But a persistent question lingered. I was curious about this groom, Caleb Montgomery, and I wondered if a decade had softened any of their hard edges. Or maybe it was just my own stubborn pride, a refusal to let them think they had successfully erased me. So, I cleared my calendar, closed the main office, and began the drive. The journey from our headquarters near New York City up to Nantucket was not long, but I took my time, stretching it into an overnight trip. I stopped at deserted lookout points to watch the moonlight on the water and drank coffee in 24-hour diners, letting the hum of the road silence the noise in my head. All along the way, questions circled. Would they even care that I was there? Would Tiffany flaunt her perfect new life? And this Caleb Montgomery, what sort of man was willingly marrying into this family dynamic? By the time I pulled into the estate's private parking lot, the party was in full swing, and as I took a deep breath of the salt-laced air, I felt a cold resolve settle over me. I was ready for whatever came next. The party was a scene of curated perfection spread across the private beach. Long tables were draped in white linen, bearing towering platters of freshly shucked oysters glistening on beds of crushed ice. There were whole lobsters arranged artfully, and crystal bowls of chilled shrimp cocktail caught the soft glow of the lanterns strung overhead. Attentive servers moved through the crowd with trays of perfectly chilled white wine, their movements fluid and practiced. Near the water's edge, an acoustic band played gentle melodies that blended with the rhythmic sigh of the waves. My parents spotted me as I moved toward the gathering. Bill's eyes narrowed, his disapproval of my simple jeans and shirt, a palpable force even from across the sand. Karen turned to her cluster of friends. her lips moving in a low murmur that elicited quiet, knowing laughter as they all glanced my way. It was their classic move, never a direct confrontation, just a series of subtle social stabs designed to remind me that I was an outsider. Tiffany was the radiant center of this universe, her white dress floating on the breeze as she laughed, arm in arm with Caleb Montgomery, the groom. He looked just as polished as he had in the photos. He saw me approaching and detached himself from a conversation to offer a brief, firm handshake. His smile was practiced. "So glad you could make it," he said, though his eyes did a quick, dismissive sweep of my attire, clinically cataloging the chasm between my appearance and that of his other guests. I just nodded and drifted toward the bar, needing a buffer of space. That is where Jenna found me. She was my middle sister, the one who had always existed in the quiet space between Tiffany's blinding spotlight and my deep shadow. We'd kept in touch through late-night phone calls when I was just starting out. She was the only one in my family who knew the real story of what I had built. She came up beside me and gave my arm a quick, warm squeeze. "You holding up okay?" This has to be a lot, seeing them still fawning over Tiffany like this. Nothing has changed. Her concern was a small, solid anchor in the swirling tide of the evening. We stood together for a moment, just watching the party ebb and flow, the toasts, the photos, the endless chatter about summer homes and stock portfolios. While getting a glass of sparkling water, I found myself near a shaded service corridor that led back toward the kitchens. Arthur Montgomery, Caleb's father, a large man with a booming laugh that he deployed like a weapon, was standing just off to the side, his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, but it carried. He was pacing, talking about the need for this wedding to extend our runway a little longer, and how the consistent inflows from the Vance household were keeping things afloat for now. I lingered just long enough to hear the raw stress beneath his jovial exterior, to see the way his eyes darted around before he abruptly ended the call. Earlier in the evening, I had overheard snippets from my own on-site staff. They mentioned the Montgomery party had made last-minute requests to reduce certain premium services, scaling back the dessert bar, putting a time limit on the open bar, changes that were unusual after contracts were finalized. Arthur also became visibly tense whenever a vendor mentioned final payment schedules, waving them off with broad promises to sort it all out immediately. His wife, Diane, was never far from his side, her fingers constantly fiddling with the heavy jewelry around her neck, adjusting the clasps as if performing a nervous tick. These small observations began to stack up. The sudden penny pinching from a family projecting immense wealth, the anxious phone calls, the over-reliance on my family's supposed financial backing. It was not one single thing, but a pattern was emerging, the kind of pattern that sets off alarms for anyone who has navigated high-stakes business deals. The unease in my gut began to harden into suspicion. This was more than just pre-wedding jitters. Caleb led Tiffany and me to a quieter spot by the outdoor bar, framing it as a little family chat before the main events. He had that smooth self-assurance of a man used to charming rooms full of investors. Our family has a long history in the luxury vacation property space, he began, his tone casual, but his words carefully chosen. We handle high-value transactions that require a great deal of discretion and, of course, total alignment from everyone involved. He paused, his eyes locking onto mine. It would be a real shame if anything were to disrupt Tiffany's perfect night, would it not? Tiffany, completely oblivious to the veiled threat, just squeezed his arm, her eyes shining with adoration. I offered a bland smile and a quiet agreement, my face a perfect mask. As they moved on, I stayed back, letting the puzzle pieces fall into place. Arthur's phone checking had become almost constant, his jaw clenching each time before he forced another booming laugh for a passing guest. Diane's hand rarely left her necklace, her fingers tracing the outlines of the stones as if for reassurance. Tiffany, meanwhile, was blissfully introducing Caleb to everyone, boasting about his family's vast holdings in premium coastal developments that generated serious passive income. She spoke with such genuine joy, utterly convinced she was marrying into a dynasty. My own parents hovered nearby, soaking it all in, telling their friends how their youngest was joining a family with real financial depth, a family that understood wealth. My father emphasized their reliability. My mother echoed his praise, both of them basking in the reflected glory of the social upgrade. All these details, the sudden budget cuts, the urgent, secretive phone calls, the vague but grandiose boasting, formed a picture I had seen before. It was the smoke that signaled a hidden fire. The inconsistencies were not screaming, but they were whispering, and the whispers were getting louder. I stepped away, pulling out my phone and sending a coded message to Marcus, my general manager, a man whose instinct for sniffing out fraud was second to none. Deeper dive on Montgomery connections, any red flags, recent developments, or partnerships. While I waited, I walked toward the water's edge, letting the party's glow fade behind me. The cool night air helped clear my head, sharpening my focus. The old resentment of being the family outcast was there, but now it was channeled into a cold resolve. Whatever this scheme was, it was threatening the assets I had built alone, through sheer force of will. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. He was fast. He had attached a preliminary file from his network of industry contacts, notes on the Montgomery name from a few years ago when it appeared on watch lists for suspicious resort promotions. The updated reports painted a grim picture of sudden funding shifts and investor complaints. Before I could even finish reading, Sarah, my longtime attorney, called. She got straight to the point, her voice sharp and urgent. She was cross-referencing Marcus's intel with her own legal and regulatory databases. The Montgomerys were not just shady developers. They were running a classic Ponzi scheme, selling shares in non-existent luxury vacation properties. They would lure in initial investors with promises of high returns, then use capital from new victims to pay the early ones, creating an illusion of success while they skimmed millions off the top. They had started in Florida and worked their way up the coast, rebranding each time they got too much heat. And Caleb Montgomery was a ghost. His real name was Derek Vance, no relation to me, the architect of a previous scheme that had collapsed and ruined dozens of families before he vanished. Federal authorities had been building a case against them for months, gathering wiretaps and subpoenaed bank records. They were on the verge of unsealing indictments, and the Vance family name from Iowa was flagged all over their files. The steady, substantial, and unexplained transfers to my parents' bank account had created the perfect illusion of hidden wealth. It made them an ideal target for the Montgomerys, a family they could latch onto through marriage to either drain directly or use as cover for their escape. Sarah laid it out coldly. Every dollar I had sent to help, to keep a roof over their heads, to pay for medical emergencies, to give them a life without financial panic, had inadvertently built the bait for this trap. My parents had swallowed Tiffany's story whole, broadcasting her success to anyone who would listen, and the wrong people had heard them. The irony was crushing, but there was no time for emotion. This was not just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a professional threat. My company could be pulled into the mess, my assets frozen, my reputation ruined by association. The decision formed instantly, hard and clear as glass. I would give the investigators the final pieces they needed, internal transfer logs, routing histories that only I could access. I would help them close the net, but I would not shield my family from the fallout. They had chosen this path, prioritizing the glitter of perceived success over the quiet truth. They had basked in a lie because it felt better than acknowledging me. The humiliation, the financial ruin, the legal storm that was coming, that was theirs to own. I texted my authorization to Sarah to forward the evidence package to her contacts on the investigative team. The process was now irreversible. I put my phone away and turned back toward the party. The music was still playing. The laughter was still ringing out. They were all dancing on the edge of a cliff, completely oblivious. My resolve was absolute. The night was about to end, and I would be the one left standing. I found Marcus in the staff area behind the main tent. He was overseeing the evening's logistics, a habit he had for major events at our flagship properties. He looked up from his tablet as I approached, his usual calm expression tightening with concern as he saw my face. We stepped into a small service corridor, the party's cheerful noise now a muffled thump through the walls. "The files you and Sarah sent," I said, my voice steady. "I need them loaded onto the main AV system, ready to go live on my signal. No announcements, just a clean override." Marcus nodded once. No questions asked. His fingers were already flying across his screen, coordinating with the on-site tech team. He had been with me long enough to trust my judgment in moments like these. A moment later, my phone vibrated. A secure message from Sarah. "Transmission complete. The investigative team is in position. They had been monitoring the event remotely, a standard procedure for high-profile targets. The public exposure of the evidence would give them the undeniable probable cause they needed to move in. Everything was perfectly aligned. The cake cutting was next, the centerpiece of the evening's schedule." I scanned the crowd and found Jenna. She was standing near the edge of the light, watching the party with a detached look I knew so well. I caught her eye and gestured with my head toward the dunes. She followed me away from the bright tables to a spot where the sound of the waves gave us privacy. I laid it all out for her, the Ponzi scheme, Caleb's real identity, the federal surveillance, and how my anonymous support had made our family the perfect bait. She listened, without a word, the color draining from her face as she absorbed the sheer scale of the deception. When I finished, she let out a long, slow breath. "I always knew something felt wrong about this," she said, shaking her head. Then her eyes met mine, and they were firm. "You are doing the right thing, Maya. You have carried this family for long enough. It is time to protect what you built." Her validation was a solid weight in my chest. There was no pleading, no appeal to save our parents or Tiffany from embarrassment. She understood. I gave her a small nod of thanks and walked back toward the lights. Tiffany was at the center of it all, posing for pictures with Caleb, her smile as wide and genuine as ever. My parents stood beside them, beaming, orchestrating group photos with the Montgomerys, looking as though this alliance was the culmination of all their dreams. The energy was high, celebratory, a perfect fragile bubble just waiting to be popped. I took my position near the edge of the main area, ready. The multi-tiered cake, a work of art, waited. My pulse was even, my focus absolute. The trap was set. Cold determination filled my lungs. No doubts, no mercy. The towering cake was wheeled to the center of the stage to a round of applause. Candles flickered, casting a soft glow as the band shifted into a romantic melody. Arthur Montgomery stepped forward, taking the microphone with a practiced, winning smile. He raised his glass, his voice booming across the beach, to a perfect union, two great families coming together in prosperity and strength. "We have built our foundations on solid ground, and tonight we join them for generations to come." Guests raised their glasses, the cheers beginning to swell. And then it happened. The large screen behind him, which had been cycling through photos of the happy couple, flickered. In an instant, the images were replaced by court filings from Florida, the official seals clearly visible. Next, a side-by-side comparison, a photo of Caleb next to a mugshot of Derek Vance. Then came the financial charts, complex arrows mapping the flow of funds in a classic Ponzi spiral. The final image was a federal surveillance authorization, dated and signed. The applause died in an instant. A dead silence fell over the beach, punctuated by confused whispers. Arthur froze mid-toast, his glass held aloft. He turned to look at the screen, and all the color drained from his face. From both sides of the party, men and women in plain suits moved in, their badges flashing in the lantern light. Federal agents, one of them announced, his voice calm but absolute. Arthur Montgomery, Diane Montgomery, Derek Vance, you are under arrest for conspiracy, securities fraud, and wire fraud. The sharp click of handcuffs echoed in the silence. Arthur began to stammer about a terrible mistake. Diane let out a choked gasp. Caleb, Derek, tried to back away, but his path was blocked. Tiffany stood paralyzed beside the cake, the silver knife still in her hand, forgotten. Her face was a canvas of confusion turning to horrified disbelief. "This cannot be happening," she whispered, her voice cracking. "This is a mistake." She sank into a nearby chair, all the joy and light in her extinguished in a moment. My parents shoved their way through the stunned crowd, their faces pale with panic. My father reached for me, his expression desperate. "Do something," he hissed. "You have to fix this." My mother was right behind him, her voice breaking. "You have the money now, Maya. Help us, save your sister. No questions, no apologies, just a demand that I clean up the mess, as if it were my duty." I walked through the crowd as it parted for me, my boots steady on the sand. Marcus handed me the microphone. The entire party was silent, watching me. "Good evening," I said, my voice clear and amplified, carrying over the sound of the waves. "I apologize for the interruption, but there is some information you all deserve to have." I gestured toward the screen where the evidence remained frozen. The Montgomery family has been operating a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. Caleb Montgomery is actually Derek Vance, a known con artist. And this estate, I paused, letting the weight of the words land, this entire venue, is mine. It is part of the Beacon Group, the company I built. I own this and all the other properties up and down the coast. A wave of gasps went through the crowd. "For 9 years," I continued, my gaze finding my parents, "I was the one sending money home to Iowa. The mortgage payments, the bills, the repairs. That was me, anonymously. Because that is how it has always been." Tiffany looked up, her shock now mixed with a fresh, raw look of betrayal. My parents stood like statues, their mouths open. "I will not be continuing that support," I said, my voice flat and final. "Any of it. Our family ties, whatever was left of them, are severed. Here, tonight, permanently. There will be no more help. There will be no more contact." I set the microphone down on the stand, turned, and walked away. The crowd parted for me again. Behind me, I could hear the first of Tiffany's ragged sobs, mingling with the frantic, pleading voices of my parents. The sounds faded as I walked into the darkness, and I never once looked back. In the months that followed, the Montgomerys were hit with a sweeping federal indictment. Prosecutors seized what little was left of their assets to provide some restitution to their countless victims. Awaiting trial without bail, their reign of deceit was over. Back in Iowa, the house my parents had lived in for 30 years was foreclosed upon. The bank moved swiftly, and they ended up in a cramped rental apartment on the edge of town. Their social circle vanished overnight. The friends who had once basked in their reflected glory now crossed the street to avoid them. Tiffany canceled the wedding with a terse public statement about unforeseen circumstances. The vague PR contracts she had boasted about evaporated. Her name was now linked to a scandal, and she became a pariah. She retreated from the world, her once vibrant social media falling silent. Jenna, however, made her choice immediately. She called me the next day, her support unwavering. We started talking more than we had in years, rebuilding our relationship piece by piece. She eventually cut ties with our parents and Tiffany as well, unable to stomach their refusal to accept responsibility. Meanwhile, my business flourished. The story of what happened at the wedding spread not as gossip, but as a testament to my integrity. New investors and partners, impressed by the decisive action, came to the table. Bookings for the Beacon Group surged. I acquired 2 new properties, one on the rocky coast of Maine, another a historic gem in Rhode Island. My company grew stronger, its reputation solidified. Life at the Nantucket estate found a new, peaceful rhythm. I spent my mornings on expansion plans and my evenings watching the sunset, finally free. Looking back, the lesson is stark. Favoring one child while diminishing another, chasing the illusion of status over substance, it always comes at a cost. My parents lost their home and their standing. Tiffany lost the fantasy future she was promised. The Montgomerys lost their freedom. People will always try to define you by your beginnings or by what they want to see. Let them. While they are busy looking down, you can build something real, something that lasts. In the end, true success is not about a single moment of dramatic revenge. It is about having the strength to walk away, to know that you built your own world on your own terms, liberated from the limitations they tried to place on you. And that freedom is worth more than any apology they could ever offer. End of story.